Golden Age of Hollywood began after the end of silent films and the incorporation of sound in filmmaking. This era saw an increase in the production of movies across all genres, including horror, westerns, and romantic dramas. It was also a time of high popularity for studio movie stars and the concept of celebrity. One of the leading men of this period was Clark Gable, known for his masculine demeanor and unmatched swagger. He was even referred to as the King of Hollywood, and is still remembered today for his role as Rhett Butler in the 1939 classic Gone with the Wind. However, his rise to fame was not as smooth as his on-screen persona. The golden age of Hollywood came to a close in the early 1960s with the rise of television and Gable's death in that year. Here are some lesser-known facts about Clark Gable's life. What united Cary Grant, Gregory Peck, and Errol Flynn? They were all leading men of Hollywood's golden age who were considered conventionally handsome, with their rugged good looks and stylish elegance. However, Clark Gable's appearance was heavily influenced by his two wives and the studios. Clark Gable's first two wives were both older women and were pretty instrumental in changing the type of man that he was both physically and the way that he comported himself. However, not everyone was immediately drawn to Gable's appearance. MGM studio head Louis Mayer once said that Gable was too elephant-eared and unattractive to be a leading man in Hollywood. As a result, Gable was initially cast in minor roles such as thugs or villains, but his female fans still responded positively. This led MGM to start grooming him to become the leading man he is remembered as today. They styled his hair and eyebrows, gave him dentures, and made him go to the gym. Biographer Fleming explained that Gable was a complete studio creation, and what audiences saw on screen was vastly different from who he truly was. Voice training for actors has been a common practice in the film industry for many years. However, not many people are aware that Clark Gable's deep baritone voice was the result of extensive voice training. Unlike many actors, Gable did not train his voice to hide an accent. Instead, his natural voice was quite high-pitched, with some even saying it was feminine. It may be difficult to imagine Gable with a feminine voice when he always portrayed a very masculine character in his films. However, musical coaches say that Gable was able to lower the pitch of his voice through body control, improved posture, and years of breathing training. Many people are familiar with the beloved animated character Bugs Bunny, who was created in the 1930s and has been a part of many childhoods. Interestingly, Bugs Bunny's signature mannerism of eating carrots was not always part of the character's design. It was reportedly inspired by a scene in the film It Happened One Night where Clark Gable's character leans against a fence and munches on a carrot. The movie was a favorite of Bugs Bunny's creator, Friz Freleng, who was inspired by Gable's carrot scene and altered the public's perception of rabbits' eating habits. In reality, rabbits do not typically eat carrots in the wild. Actor didn't have a naturally perfect smile as it appeared on screen. He had to get a full set of dentures at the age of 32 due to a severe gum infection that resulted in the removal of almost all his teeth. A skilled dentist created the dentures that gave him his signature smile. However, it's also reported that this oral condition caused his breath to have a bad odor, which made Vivien Leigh, his co-star in Gone with the Wind, uncomfortable during kissing scenes. Rhett Butler, played by Clark Gable, is considered to be Gable's defining role by modern audiences. Although Gable was not the initial choice for the role, he delivered an iconic performance once he agreed to take it on. However, not everyone believed in the film's potential success. There is a rumor that Gary Cooper passed on the role, believing it would be a huge flop. Gable himself had doubts about living up to the expectations of readers who already had a mental image of Butler. However, Gable had other motivations for accepting the role. He was in the midst of a contentious divorce from his wife, Rhea Langham, and had fallen deeply in love with Carole Lombard. His wife was determined to make him pay a high price for the divorce. Gable needed money, and that ultimately played a significant role in his decision to take on what would become the greatest role of his career. Clark Gable had a strong desire to maintain cleanliness, reportedly taking multiple showers a day. However, he had a strong aversion to taking baths, which may seem unusual for someone who values cleanliness. He had a valid reason for this, as he did not like the idea of sitting in water filled with his own body's impurities. Gable's cleanliness was also noted by those around him. John Mahan, who shared a room with Gable during his time in the Army, described Gable as having a cleanliness fetish. Gable's obsession with cleanliness was so extreme that he even constructed a portable shower for himself. He also was known to change his clothes frequently throughout the day and change his sheets daily. Superman is one of the most iconic and recognizable superheroes in film history. Since the first comic was published, people have been fascinated by the story of Clark Kent. However, did you know that the origin of Clark Kent's name was due to the creators Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster's love for movies? They combined the names of two famous Hollywood actors, Clark Gable and Kent Taylor, to create the secret identity of Clark Kent. Without the inspiration from Gable and Taylor, Superman's character may have been quite different. While filming the movie Gone with the Wind, Gable was unaware that segregation was taking place on the set. The set had separate bathrooms for black and white people. When an extra named Lenny Blute saw this, he brought it to Gable's attention. Gable took action by contacting the director of the movie and threatening to quit his role as Rhett Butler unless the bathrooms were integrated. His efforts were successful, and soon after the set was fully integrated. Clark Gable was deeply in love with his wife, Carole Lombard, so it was no surprise that he was devastated when she died. He was on vacation after filming the movie Honky Tonk and was eagerly awaiting her return. However, upon arriving at the airport, he learned that his wife had been killed in a plane crash on a mountain. Despite being told that it was impossible for him to retrieve her body himself, due to the treacherous terrain, Gable desperately pleaded to be allowed to do so. Ultimately, it was her death that motivated him to join the war effort. It is less well known that one of his admirers was the notorious leader of the Third Reich, Adolf Hitler. Hitler was a fan of Gable's films and even offered a $5,000 reward for anyone who could bring Gable to him unharmed during World War II. However, as the war progressed, Hitler's infatuation with Gable turned to malice, and the reward was changed to dead or alive. Gable was aware of the threat and expressed concern that if he were captured, Hitler would put him on display like a trophy. Despite this, Gable served in World War II, flying successful missions and returning home a hero. He was relieved of duty on June 12, 1944, at the rank of major. Although Gable fought hard for his stardom and was very good to his fans, he remained very down to earth. When he won his first and only Best Actor Oscar for It Happened One Night, Gable gave the statuette to a kid who had commented on it being pretty. Gable reportedly told the child that it was the winning of the statue that had mattered, not owning it. Following Gable's death in 1960, the Oscar was returned to Gable's widow,